Fala pessoal, meu nome é Arthur Reis e nesse vídeo aqui nós vamos ver como as empresas globais estão usando a inteligência artificial para se reinventar. Então, confere comigo esse vídeo aqui, onde a gente vai ver o seguinte, tá? Como funciona a adoção dessa nova tecnologia, da inteligência artificial, nas empresas, tá? Essa aqui é uma pesquisa da Ásia. Também, como se calcula o equilíbrio, o risco entre o risco e a oportunidade de usar a inteligência artificial. Eu trago um material aqui, ele está em inglês, então eu acionei aqui a legenda para a gente conseguir acompanhar ele em português também, né? E ele é bem atual, né? É dessa semana, né? Dia 13. E olha só, são dois CEOs discutindo a utilização da inteligência artificial em empresas ali da Europa, certo? E como isso está se espalhando aí nessa questão de empresas globais. Então, esse é um material assim de tendência, né, na utilização aí da inteligência artificial como um benefício, né, como mais uma oportunidade, né, a ser calculada, né, para ser implantada aí nas empresas. Então, vamos começar olhando aqui.
One of the key things that we've observed on organizations wanting to reinvent themselves, and underpinning all of this is data and AI at the core.
Hello, and welcome to today's discussion on the current and future adoption of artificial intelligence in the Asia-Pacific region. My name is Chris Holmes, Editor-at-Large for CIO ASEAN. And with me, we have Senthil Ramani, Senior Managing Director and Head of AI at Accenture in APAC, Africa, Middle East, and LATAM. So we've seen a huge interest in artificial intelligence over the last few years, with surging recent months due to the interest in generative AI tools such as ChatGPT. Our research from the 2023 State of the CIO APAC shows that 29% of CIOs see that AI will drive the most investment for 2023. And this is backed up by spend data from IDC, forecasting spending on AI in APAC to grow to 49.2 billion in 2026, with a compound annual growth rate of 24.
Aqui, então, um crescimento em investimentos em inteligência artificial de quase 50 bilhões até 2026. A gente já está aí na metade de 2023, então 2 anos e meio, né, quase 50 bilhões é a estimativa que se invista na inteligência artificial.
5% from 2021 to 2026. So with that being said, Senthil, what are you seeing as the state of AI adoption in APAC markets?
Chris, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, and thanks for having me. When we released the Art of AI Maturity last quarter, we actually went around talking to 1,617 different executives, globally. In fact, 500 of them were in Asia-Pacific, so it's a pretty good sampling size, I would call it. There were 3 important insights that we derived, out of it. The first one was that 67% of them had AI baked into their business strategy right from the beginning of the year, right? So that was a very critical aspect. The second important aspect that we found in most of these, players as well, is that 17% of them were on the top achievers quadrant. And when I say the top achievers quadrant, Asia Pacific was leading in the top achievers quadrant, all the 17%. That brings me to the third and the most important question is AI and enterprise value. You would have seen that there's been a 71% spike in the usage of the AI word in earnings report by CEOs. But if you really look into the substance of that, Chris, and you go in deeper, you would find out that 38% of all these companies have said there is a direct correlation with enterprise value and adoption of AI across the enterprise. So I think Asia Pacific is prime for AI. The next few years is all about scaled AI.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, talking about reinvention, Accenture sees 9% of companies in the Asia-Pacific region as reinventors. Essential to this is that digital core, which is made up of data, cloud, and AI. What do organizations really need to do to be successful in their adoption of AI?
Look, what we've observed is ever since the pandemic, one of the key things that we've observed on organizations wanting to reinvent themselves, and this word is used a lot, in today's context. And that really means is this is transcending their business models, their talent model and their talent architecture, their supply chains, their view on sustainability. Underpinning all of this is data and AI at the core. And we call this phenomenon the total enterprise reinvention. In fact, we've seen a 59% increase in the investment of the core. And in the core, we again talk about exactly, Chris, what you said, which is cloud, AI, and the infrastructure that is needed by these reinventors, right, who are really doing that. And these future reinventors are the ones who are going to dominate and create new performance benchmarks, for the entire industry as well. And I would really call them, and the way they view as AI success, into three broad buckets. Number one, they're asking themselves, is my AI enterprise ready? Is my AI data ready? And is my AI people?
Vamos dar uma olhada aqui nessas perguntas, né, de reinvenção. Minha empresa está pronta para a inteligência artificial? Meus dados estão prontos para a inteligência artificial? E aqui, as pessoas estão prontas para a inteligência artificial? Essa é a questão que ele está abordando aqui agora.
People ready, right? So these are the three important questions they're asking themselves. If I double click on that, Chris, number one, on the enterprise side, do we have a champion or is somebody who's championing the cause? And typically in these days, we are seeing it's literally the board and the CEOs, a number of conversations, that we are starting to see and have. And number two is the capital allocation for this, which I just told you around 59% increase. And you mentioned statistics, which were fantastic at the beginning of, the launch of this interview as well. And number three is the governance of AI itself. Because AI, the minute you introduce AI, there's opportunity as well as there is risk. And how do you actually manage that? Is there a governance process to manage AI, overall across the enterprise? The second important thing is data ready. Often comes the situation that, you start to look at AI in some cool way that you tend to forget that the foundations are important and having the data foundation is super critical for the same. And at the same time, having the governance and the security go along with it is going to be critical.
Aqui ele está fazendo, então, paralelo, né, sobre essa oportunidade de utilizar a inteligência artificial dentro da empresa, mas com cuidado com a segurança, né? Haja vista que quando a gente traz uma inteligência artificial, ela utiliza, né, a nossa base de dados, nosso banco de dados, ela pode utilizar isso para fazer ali o seu trabalho, a sua geração de trabalho, entregar ali o seu tipo de serviço. E ela, como uma outra ferramenta, né, também é suscetível aí a ataques. Então, tem que ter essa governança aí dos dados, né, que são compartilhados, né, com sistemas de inteligência artificial que geralmente são na nuvem, né? Então, tem que ter toda essa parte de proteção em nuvem, mais a parte de proteção local de quem for usar isso.
The last mile is the first mile. I always say this, which is the people side, right? We tend to not pay a lot of attention to it, but I truly believe the last mile has to be the first mile, which means it's about educating and making people literate of both producers and consumers of AI and data in an organization, which is important. And then having the metrics in an organization which is aligned for people to succeed in the leverage of AI. So really, I mean, if I had to summarize it, it's about enterprise readiness, people readiness, and data readiness. And those are the three important building blocks for AI success. Yes.
Então, para o sucesso, né, da inteligência artificial aplicada na empresa, né, daquelas perguntas que ele citou antes, né, ele começa das pessoas, né, de como as pessoas vão lidar com e conhecer a inteligência artificial, e depois segue os outros passos ali, que é a própria tecnologia e depois a empresa.
We've got to talk about it. Generative AI, it's everywhere. I mean, it is talk of the town at the moment. I mean, we're seeing now that it's moved from sort of people just talking about it to really implementing it, people trying it. Maybe you could share some of the proof of concepts you've seen and some of the use cases that people are actually seeking to actually adopt this?
I'm wondering where I should start answering that question with my kid or my grandmother, because that's exactly what generative AI has done. It's kind of completely democratized the leverage of AI, and it's actually given me purpose in my family finally, because when I go back to tell them I'm an AI professional.
Aqui ele já trouxe dois exemplos, né, de como ele vai começar a explicar exemplos de como utilizar a inteligência artificial. Então, você quer um exemplo para uma criança ou você quer um exemplo para o idoso, né? Então, são muitas as possibilidades de utilização na IA, né? Inclusive, tem um cliente meu que ele já tem aí, já tem uma idade, né, acima aí de 60 anos, e eu ensinei para ele, agora ele usa ali o chat GPT como consultor ali para algumas perguntas que ele faz.
I think they now get it. But they have far more questions, Chris, for me than they ever had in the past, right? And you're spot on. If I had to tell you, the average number of conversations we are having with boards and with CEOs have spiked up by probably 60% on a weekly basis is primarily because of generative AI. So in a way, we have to thank generative AI because it's an inflection point for our profession and it's brought AI into the. But with the same time, as it has done that, there are this opportunity risk balance that I constantly talk about. But before I go to the risk side, I want to talk about the opportunity side. The way we see generative AI is really into a 3P framework, right? Coming from consulting, we do have a lot of frameworks, as you can imagine. This one framework is specifically for generative AI. Number one is around really productivity. Generative AI directly talks into productivity of an organization. Examples in telcos or in retail could include call centers, utilities, where these are really used for ability to, address this through chatbots and better chatbots.
Aqui, então, ele está citando um framework, né, de utilização, né, para utilizar a inteligência artificial nas empresas. E o primeiro ele fala aqui que é a produtividade, né, por exemplo, do atendimento ali de call centers, né, tornar as coisas mais automáticas no atendimento ao consumidor.
Language translation that can enable to do that. The second
traduções simultâneas também.
Important thing is programming, which is the second P. It is really starting to question software engineering and ability to do things faster and better in a very different way. So productivity is the first thing. Programming is really the second thing. In a way, you can get code faster to market in terms of a lot of the products using the programming aspect of generative.
Segundo ponto é democratizar aqui, a gente pode entender assim, a programação, né? É tornar a programação mais fácil para as pessoas conseguirem ajustar a sua própria inteligência artificial.
AI. And the third and probably one of the coolest things of generative AI, which is really related to top line and growth for organization, is personalization. I would have known Chris earlier in a particular way. I would have given Chris a particular campaign, but in tomorrow.
E a última aqui que ele fala é
world with generative AI, I can give Chris a hyper-personalized experience.
É a experiência, né, do usuário conseguindo personalizar aqui um atendimento ou um site, né, com base na utilização de todos os dados, né, e na utilização de uma inteligência artificial para gerar ali alguma ação, algum comando diferente.
Which is where we are moving away from next best action in the AI world into what I call.
Aqui, então, na melhor ação, né, que ele diz aqui. Então, um exemplo disso é eu entrando num site e ele reconhece ali através dos cookies, né, tudo que eu já faço, já sigo, né, e me dá um atendimento personalizado, calculando qual seria o melhor link, qual o melhor produto a mostrar para mim naquele determinado momento, né, com base no cálculo ali que ele faz sobre a minha navegação, né, sobre os meus hábitos na internet.
Next best conversation, and it's about conversation that I can have with you, Chris, in a way that I've never done in the past, and that's what generative AI really does. So the 3 Ps on programming, productivity.
Outro exemplo aqui para ficar um pouco mais claro, né, a gente já vê nos chatbots quando a gente pesquisa por suporte e a gente vê que é um atendimento ali mais automatizado, né? Às vezes ele consegue acertar naquele atendimento ali, né? E ele está ficando cada vez mais preciso aí por causa da utilização, né, da inteligência artificial.
As well as personalization is the opportunity. Now, from a risk perspective, if you really look at it, there are 4 things I'd like organizations to, carefully look at when they start to look at generative AI for their organization. The number 1 would be unreliable outputs. We have to understand there is hallucination, effect.
Agora ele vai falar dos riscos da inteligência artificial. Essa parte também é bem legal aqui, ó. O primeiro risco que ele fala é das informações erradas, né? Porque quem é que está pensando ali é o computador, né? Ele que está analisando aqueles dados, aquela informação, né? E buscando em toda a sua base de dados para dar a melhor resposta. Então, ele pode fornecer uma resposta errada, né? Então, ele vai ter que ser calculado ali a taxa de acertos daquela inteligência artificial para ver se ela vale ou não ser continuada ou ser utilizada.
Still there in generative AI. Number 2 is explainability of some of these models, because they could be black box. Do you really have responsible design going on right from the start to the end?
Segundo, né, a funcionalidade da inteligência artificial, né, o que ela faz e o quão complexo ela é para se trabalhar com ela.
Of the models being deployed. The second important thing is really confidentiality and security. The third thing I would say is liability and compliance.
Aqui também ele fala, né, da segurança de dados, né, esse é um risco da inteligência artificial, né, Aqui, terceira coisa é responsabilidade e a conformidade desses dados.
Significant portion of this is on IP, if you will, right? Contractual IP and so on. How you use those images, where do you get that from? What are the trademarks, so on. That's going to be really important. And the last thing is bias and misinformation is going to be very, very critical, which is why responsible AI design has become, very, very critical for us. So in Accenture, we've created a generative AI center of excellence, which is a global center of excellence. In fact, significant portion of them are in Asia-Pacific here. We are fortunate to have them here across our geographies. And that's what the Center of Excellence does, is goes and enables our clients with this 3P framework, as well as with understanding of the risks on how to embrace generative AI.
So,
aqui na consultoria dele, né, ele disse que ela ajuda lá naquela primeira pergunta lá, né, de o usuário primeiro, né, explicar ao usuário como ele pode utilizar aquilo, qual a parte de segurança que vai ter que ser utilizado.
I mean, with all that being said, how do organizations really get started? How do they move forward and start to seize some of the opportunities that AI presents?
Chris, I'm a huge fan of the number of days. So let me probably lay out a 90-day plan, for you. And I'll probably say it is important to look at AI at an enterprise level, like I was saying, and then generative AI as part of it to use generative AI as a catalyst for the enterprise AI. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clearly, coming out. And I think when you talk about the 90-day plan, I'd probably put that into 3 simple buckets. Number 1 is exploration. Number 2 is experimentation. Number 3 is execution. When you talk about exploration, it's about understanding the
Aqui ele falou, então, do passo a passo para começar a utilizar a inteligência artificial. Né?
Value that AI and when you talk about
explorar, experimentar e executar.
For exploration, it's about understanding the value that AI and generative AI can really bring to organizations. It has to be through the value chain lens, which is corporate services, as well as the core value chain, as well as your front-end be it marketing, sales, customer, and so on. So it's very important to do that. And having the view from an industry and what it does to the core value chain. The second important thing is experimentation. Generative AI, as you and I have seen, creates apps every day. So you wake up in the morning, there are newer apps, newer technologies coming in. So it's critical for organizations and which are using this to clearly understand how to embrace this technology in a structured and a deliberate manner, right? From a framework. So the technology choices are a lot, whether you want to go the hyperscaler route, whether you have native generative AI companies which are producing, AI solutions today, and you have to take that call. And the call really depends on the use case that you're trying to do, the value that you're trying to generate, and so on and so forth. The last thing I would say is really execution at scale, which is the topic that we kind of talked about. And I would really say one of the key things in the 90 days is to bucket the use cases into two parts. What are things that you can directly consume from the market, right? From what we call large language models, from the LLMs that you can consume from the market. And what are things that you can customize after you take them from the market? Because you still need to tune that with your data that is there in your organization.
Então aqui você, só dando uma resumida aqui, né? Você verifica quais são as inteligências artificiais disponíveis e que fazem sentido para o seu negócio, né? Para você. Depois experimentar essas inteligências artificiais e por último começar a escalar isso dentro aí da empresa ou dentro do processo que a gente está construindo ali ou do projeto que a gente está construindo.
Organization and so on. So I would really say the 90-day plan is about creating those, the explore, experiment, and execution kind of framework and looking at these use cases in these two, specific buckets as we do that. Please make sure that as you're doing that in the 90 days, I'd strongly recommend that we take legal, compliance, marketing, along with that in the journey right from the beginning.
Levar aqui o setor de marketing junto, o jurídico, deixa eu ver qual mais.
Compliance, marketing.
Conformidade, né? A parte de segurança aqui de dados.
Along with that in the journey right from the beginning, so that when we are doing this, we are doing it in a responsible way, right from the design of the process to the way it finally hits, the consumer.
Thank you for today's discussion and insight. My name is Chris Holmes and I've been talking to Senthil Ramani. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. And if anyone has got any questions or comments.
Desculpa. Esse foi o vídeo de hoje, né? Então a gente está falando aqui de tendência, né? Tecnologia, empreendedorismo, utilização da inteligência artificial, certo? Não se esqueça de garantir aqui que você está inscrito no canal, isso ajuda muito, né, a minha pessoa, né? E aquele abraço, até o próximo vídeo. Valeu!